Minnesota and some of the new changes that came up. So we got a great program today on deer. Next week, we're going to be talking about some small game hunting. This is kind of the start of the hunting season. I know, Todd, you get kind of worked up this time of year too. It's like fall's coming and hunting season's around the corner, and there's a lot of stuff to prepare. We were just talking about getting out and shooting your bow a little bit and whatnot. So it's that time of year. So it's had
the temps are getting down into the 50s and at night, so it's perfect. It feels like fall. We're gearing up.
Kind of nice. So I'd like to introduce everybody. My name is Benji Kohn. I work in the outreach department, help with putting all these MOS programs on, along with James, who's helping us out today, and Craig and Cassie are both back there helping answer questions and whatnot. So if you have any questions, please put them down in the Q&A section. We're going to save the chat section for any links that we have during the presentation. We'll put those up in the chat. Q&A will be the questions we'll try to get to and answer as we go through the program. So I'd like to introduce Todd Froberg. He's our acting big game specialist at the DNR. Sure. What office do you work out of again? Is it Lake City?
No, Whitewater WMA, so down in Altura, Minnesota.
Okay, good. Well, take it away. Introduce yourself, Todd.
All right, as Benji said, I'm the acting big game program coordinator. I've been in this role for since about February to fill the vacancy. And before that, I was working as a Southeast Landowner Assistant Specialist. And that was working on everything deer related. So, and just to make sure my mic is all good and you can hear me. Okay.
Yep, you sound good. So go ahead and start your PowerPoint there. I did forget to mention that if anybody needs the multimedia viewer, it is on the bottom right-hand side there. If you click on the multimedia viewer, it should take you to an outside website, and everything is closed caption there. So, and again, we are recording this, so if anybody missed it, or if you want to save it for later or share with your friends, please come back and link to it off our main page or through the link you registered through. So let's talk about the deer seasons.
Is this the correct viewing mode?
You got it.
All right, we're ready to go. So, all right, yeah. So a little bit what we'll talk about today is we'll do a brief overview of how and where to find the online rules, regulations, and some resources. We'll go over what's new for the 2021 season, and then some important seasons and or important season dates and other important dates for some of those expanded opportunities that are out there for hunters if you're looking for some extra opportunities. Ooh. I don't know what happened.
You just lost your PowerPoint there.
Yeah, I took away my ability to share it, so.
Well, this is the fun and games of going live and
technology.
Yep. Here. Okay, you should have.
There we go.
To roll back, so.
And I'm back. And then we'll give a real brief overview of CWD and kind of what you know or what you need to know going into this hunting season, and then provide time for question and answers. I'll do my best to try to answer some questions. Deer seasons and the structure of it is pretty diverse, so I might not know everything, but I can definitely try. I've hunted most of my life and most of my deer hunting experiences in Southeast Minnesota, so I'm very familiar with that, and I've done some other forays outside of there. But of course, with this job, I have to know some of the other stuff, but it's tough to keep up with it. So the regs book is sometimes the best answer. But and speaking of the regs, yep.
I was just gonna say, you grew up spoiled, you know. I grew up in Southeast Minnesota too, and it was always like, oh, Dad had helped fill out the license, you get your thing, and away you go, right? And when you start diving into it, it's like, you know, preparing now for hunting season is a good thing. Read the rules and regs, especially the CWD stuff. Make sure you're prepared for that, and make sure you get the license that you need. So
Yeah, and the reality of it is, I guess the changing landscape of deer densities, and then also just disease aspect is, it seems to be there's more and more changes. Unfortunately, we try to keep them as simplistic as possible, but there's a lot, a lot going on. So sometimes it does get convoluted. And I guess maybe I should start that by saying, maybe the best thing is if you do have a question, is to reach out to the DNR Info Center, or any of us, I guess, as a DNR resource. We're always available via phone or email, or your local conservation officer as well. They would much rather have the question on the front end rather than pleading ignorance is not an excuse on the back end. So I think that's probably a good thing to lead with. And I know I even look at the regs on a a common basis of trying to figure out what I can and can't do, and sometimes it does even get difficult for us. So I touch base with some conservation officers as well. So, but on those regs, the best place to find them is specifically, I guess, online, if you have that ability, via computer or on your mobile smart device. Otherwise, if the old-fashioned method of just picking one up from in print or in the booklet, the regs booklet is the the common term is just the regs booklet. You can get that at a ELS vendor, so electronic licensing system vendor. That's your your regular bait shop or your sports shop. You can pick that up, and I know I have one that rides around in my truck with me. And if you're looking to get it online, there's multiple routes to get this, but I think this is the easiest way. This is right from the Minnesota DNR homepage, and I'm going to go back. That's at www.dnr.state.mn.us. And if you're looking on this recreation tab on the left top side, then you go down to the hunting and trapping. Click on that, and this will bring you to this main hunting and trapping page. And there's a wealth of information and resources here. Kind of everything between all hunt information for all species, and then you can see in the red circle there the regs, and you can click on any one of those three links, and it will take you right to the regs page, and then you can download them here. And I guess a quick tip is, if you do download them, to make sure you save that PDF on your phone, or whatever it may be, just in case you're hunting somewhere where there's not cell phone service. You can readily have them available.
if you look right below where you're circled there, Todd, in the waterfall booklets, we have those in several languages. We soon will be having the hunting regulations up here in multiple languages also. So hopefully that's coming in the next couple of weeks. But if you're in need of that, or know other people that are, please point them to the website. That'll be there first before they get out to the ELS vendors. So
yeah, that's definitely great to point that out too. And that's a large undertaking. So, and it's even larger when we're talking about the hunting regs book. So hopefully, like as Benji said, that'll be done in the near future, and going into future years. So, and then now that you know where the regs book, and you can check out what licenses you need, the best or easiest place you can buy your license online is right here at this, on the same homepage, the license, permits, and regulations tab. And then buy your license online. It'll take you to this. Click here on this link, and you'll have the option for your deer. If you're buying a firearms license, you select your deer permit area, and this is in no way tied, makes you tied to this deer permit area. This is specifically for mainly the big game program. So my position for tracking and kind of knowing how many hunters are subscribing to an area or applying for an area, or just a general idea of kind of where people are going in the state. Of course, we have mandatory harvest registration, so we end up knowing where the deer is harvested, but this gives us an idea of kind of success, and how many hunters are actually out there trying for that DPA, and gives us an idea potential of some extra metrics for whether the population is higher or lower than we actually think, and what harvest may dictate. So, and then select your season, A or B, and this is important for depending on kind of what DPA you're hunting in. Those 100 series areas. So I'll go back, and this is those gray areas. It's a little bit hard to see on this map, and the 200 is the green area towards northwest, west, and southwest Minnesota. And then the 600 and 300 series is southeastern Minnesota, and those 600 are designate that it's a disease permit. And this is the season dates and structure of those corresponding series. So the 100, 200, and 300 series, and those are A licenses, and those are those specific dates that you can hunt in. A thing to note, or if you're hunting in a 100 series area, a 200 series area, if you're buying an A license, even though that license is specific for there, and you can only hunt within those times, you do have the ability to go into those DPA or the DPAs that are disease areas. So those 600, you can use an A or a B license in those areas, and that's just to provide extra opportunities to reduce densities in some of those disease areas. And then also the B license, the only place that you can use that is in the 300 series during the B season. So that does tie you to those late seasons if you do buy a B season for the second weekend or the second season of firearms. I say that with one caveat, is that B license can be used within the disease permit area, so those 600 areas, or your 701 metro area. And then at this time, you're going to want to get any corresponding bonus permits, and that deadline is, which we'll go into later, but it's September 9th. So if you buy your license before that deadline, you'll be entered into the antlerless lottery for that DPA, or if you're applying for a special hunt, you'll be entered into that.
So now you can really see how making a little bit of a plan takes a little bit of effort. So yeah, the DPA, the deer permit area, I grew up down in the 341 permit zone and down in Goodhue County. And then, so I got to select the zone I'm in, and then the season I want, correct, for that. But that doesn't necessarily limit me to only hunting in 341. I can move over and hunt in like 233 or something, a neighboring zone.
Right.
Correct.
Good point. Yep, that's a statewide license. So it, as I said, but I didn't point it out very well. If you buy that 341, if you have an A license, you can move. You can go up and hunt in the 100 series. You can go all the way up north as far as you want to go and hunt in that 100 series as long as that season's open. So, or go down to southwestern Minnesota. You can kind of move around. Just with that license, it does not tie you to that DPA. So, yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things a lot of people miss when they sign up for a zone and then they only want to hunt in that zone, and there's other options. So
yeah, the only time that that DPA is tied is if it's a that antlerless license specifically, and like this, for instance, is 179, and there's a lottery designation of 2,500 permits. So if you apply for 179 before that deadline of September 9th, and you draw a permit in 179, that antlerless permit is specifically tied to DPA 179 because it's allocated for that DPA, and a way for us to keep track of how many deer are shot or how many tags are available within that, so there's not a over harvest of a population within a DPA.
great.
All right, and getting a regulations booklet or even a license from an ELS, electronic licensing system vendor. So again, those bait shops or any of your sport shops or gas stations that have them. The way to find this again is from the DNR homepage, your license, permits, and regulations tab, where to buy a license. And then all the way down at the bottom, it lists agents, and you can select by county. So if you're not quite sure where the nearest one is to your home, or if you're traveling for work or maybe traveling for a hunting trip, you can look specifically up by county and figure out where the nearest one is located to you to make it convenient. And all those ELS agents not only will have the regs book, but will also have the ability to buy your license there. So what's new for the 2021 season? There are some CWD regulation changes. We're back to mandatory testing on opening weekends. And for the full suite of regulations for CWD, that's page 68 to 79. And we're back to the mandatory because ultimately that's when the most deer are harvested on the opening weekends. So it's the best bang for our buck, and it gives us a good a sampling of a disease on the lands, so prevalence and kind of distribution within those DPAs and kind of where disease is on the landscape. And we backed off because of COVID restrictions last year, but we are back full with staffed and self-service sampling stations for all those surveillance areas, and that's mandatory testing. DPAs 110, 184, 197, 233, 342, and then 169 west of Highway 6 have been added to the CWD surveillance zone. And again, page 70 of the regs for more details. Otherwise, you can log on to the interactive map or kind of look at your fold-out map that's in the deer fold-out map that's in the regulations booklet. And then the bag limit labels have changed, so nothing with the bag limits specifically, except for the unlimited antlerless, which I'll go into more detail. But the labels specifically have changed. It's still the same, but it's just a simplification of wording. So the lottery is now antlerless permit lottery. Hunter's choice is an either sex tag. Your managed is a 2 deer limit. Intensive is now called 3 deer limit. And then the unlimited antlerless, which we actually reduced to a 5 deer limit, is just called the 5 deer limit. So,
and a question on the CWD stuff, Todd. I know it's mandatory testing this year, and that is in all both the management CWD zones, the control, and the surveillance zones, correct?
Correct. Yep. And then we can go into some more detail on my CWD slides, but I can just mention this now. In the management and the control zones, there's the ability to voluntary test outside of those mandatory opening weekends at a self-service sampling station or head barrels, and then in your surveillance zone. Although it's mandatory on opening weekend, you do have the ability to, again, voluntary test, and this is free of charge. You just need to contact your local wildlife office and set up an appointment to drop off the head or have them take the lymph nodes. So,
great.
And more of what's new for the 2021 season. Youth are able to use crossbows during that youth deer season, and it's specifically if they have their youth firearms license within that season, they can use the crossbow. So it's limited just to those that 4-day season, and again, crossbows are able to be used by adult hunters or anybody else during that early antlerless season, as long as they possess that early antlerless license.
It's a huge change. I came a year too late for my daughter, but she was really excited last year. We talked about the rules and regulations book. I got looking into it. I'm like, honey, you can't use a crossbow during the youth season. So she's going to go down to Grandpa's place and hunt down there. But this year she's going to be able to. So she's kind of excited. Hopefully we can.
Yeah,
that's
kind of a fun added regulation. So. And then the early antlerless season has been expanded, and the best way to there's quite a few DPAs listed in that. So the best way to view that is in the regulations. That's page 81. There's several DPA changes. Again, a fair number of DPAs, so I won't name them all, but the best way is to, again, look in the regulations, that fold-out map or in the interactive deer map on the DNR webpage. I'll just explain kind of the reasoning for some of these DPA changes. For instance, if there was like a really good deer habitat on maybe some of the east side of the zone and poor habitat on the west side of the zone, we're trying to kind of make all the DPAs match. There's a ununiform distribution of deer or higher densities in one area, so maybe they're having a lot of depredation issues or car kills on one side of the zone, but the whole DPA is very a conservative bag limit, so it really doesn't it doesn't match kind of what the deer population is. So these changes, although they make it a little bit difficult to track, we really are trying to do our best to just kind of make them uniform and make sense for what those bag limits are, how they fit within those DPAs, so the management designations. And then a popular hunt, the Camp Ripley archery hunt, is now a 3-day hunt. It's no longer a 2-weekend hunt. It's just a 3-day hunt, and the October 29th to the 31st. So a very good time of year to be in the woods with archery gear. The rut is starting to ramp up, so some people prefer that weekend over any other. So so there's that opportunity, and then the late CWD hunts this is the first time that we've listed them beforehand in the regulations booklet, and this is due to persistent infection of CWD within those DPAs. So this year you're able to plan ahead. You'll know they'll be in these DPAs on December 17th through the 19th and December 31st through January 2nd. And again, the timings or the dates for these hunts are specifically picked for when family will be back, and that's kind of what's been preferred for most hunters and kind of the landowners, as they say, the very short hunts over holiday periods. So this weekend before Christmas and after Christmas is when kind of everybody's gathered home, and this provides opportunity then. And here are deer season dates. Archery is the first one coming up, and it's coming up pretty soon. So I still have stuff to get ready, that's for sure. I still don't have any cameras out. I saw a really nice buck in a bean field right next to my house the other day, and my neighbor's been sending me deer trail camera pictures, and I don't know what I'm doing that I don't have any out yet, but I need to get on it. That is for sure. And I guess other than that, the firearms season, which is our biggest one, is November 6th here, November 6th to the 21st for the A, and then B is the 6th to the 14th, and as well for the 300 series, and then the late season B is November 20th to the 28th. And just to note is these are set in rule. Like the November 6th is for firearms. It's set in rule by our legislature is it's the Saturday nearest November 6th. And then one other note on the season timings, the youth season, which is a statewide season, so provides opportunity for the youth. This coincides with MEA weekend, and that early antlerless season also is over MEA, and that is available for all licensed hunters as long as they have that early antlerless permit, which is I believe $8 this year. So. And again, on some important dates, we talked a little bit about the Camp Ripley hunt, and I know this deadline is already passed. It's 8/20/21, but I do want to make a note that these dates are the same every year. So it's the Friday nearest August 17th. So like for me, I have multiple calendar, and my calendar gets filled up with some of these reminders, whether it's for Minnesota or some outstate deadlines of when I need to have my applications in. I usually like to set a week prior reminder. I've missed a turkey deadline in the past and then had to wait till later season to hunt. So I was kicking myself for not having a reminder set. So I've learned the hard way, and it's best to just set a reminder for these things. And the youth deer hunt for these special hunts is the application date is the same. It's the Friday nearest August 17th. So set a reminder before, and then the big one, which is in bold here, is September 9th, 2020, or set enroll first Thursday following Labor Day. So those antlerless and special hunt lottery deadlines is that day. We'll go in a little bit more to detail and kind of what some of those are. And before we jump into, I guess, some of those special hunts, I think it's important to remember that we do have ample resources in Minnesota across the state of public lands, whether that's state forest or federal lands. There's quite a bit. Of course, most people know of the ample opportunities in the northern part of the state of a wealth of state and federal forest lands that you're able to recreate on. But some of the other ones that are maybe forgotten you can view these, but going to the Minnesota Recreation Compass page, and you can kind of search around the state or search by specific type or name. And some of these, the common ones maybe that everybody knows about is the WMAs, or the wildlife management areas. But there's also a few other ones that are kind of undersubscribed, or not as, people don't think about them as much, but maybe some SNAs, so the scientific and natural areas, and then the AMAs, the aquatic management areas. With those, though, there's a special note, is they're not specifically designed for wildlife management. So there's maybe some limits on hunting or angling or trapping in some of these. So definitely check out this page and check out the regulations and restrictions, if there are any, for each one. It's not as common across the board, but there are a few. And for instance, I picked this one out. This is Etna Creek AMA. So it's aquatic management area in southeastern Minnesota. And the blue part here is open for general use. So you can, as you can see in the type there's angling, non-motorized travel, wildlife observation, hunting and trapping allowed. But in the purple part, it's an Etna Creek AMA easement. And that is for foot traffic only, and it's specifically for angling. And a lot of these are, accessed through private land. So it's pretty important to observe by these guidelines. Otherwise, we could lose easements or lose access by, landowners who are not happy with the way that it's been access being conducted. So just keep that in mind. And then some more of these expanded opportunities. There's some public land hunts that don't necessarily coincide with these special hunts. There's timings that they're open where they typically wouldn't be. Some of them are federal lands, so like the Minnesota Valley National Wildlife Refuge is open at certain times, and there's outliers of dates, and they're not always the same. So my guidance for that would be to check with that specific hunt, whether it's a city hunt or a federal hunt or on some of the state parks. It's just to check out those within the regs or on their website of what those deadlines or restrictions are, so you don't miss them. And specifically talking about our special hunts, there's 30 special archery hunts listed this year, and that's page 86 and 89 in the regs booklet. And again, the deadline for these is for the firearms hunt or the special hunts is September 9th. So keep that in mind. But with some of these archery hunts, there are some, mainly with the archery hunts, there are some with the firearms and muzzle loaders with mandatory orientations for some of them. But for the archery hunt specifically, there's maybe some proficiency tests that you would have to pass, or you would have to, observe by, or some of these have specific places where they would place you, or only a allotted area if it's in like a city limits. So if that's not of interest to you, don't apply for them. So I would again specifically check those, whether it's a city, check the website, or check with the hunt administrator. Most of this information of course is in the regulations, but if you're looking for more, those hunt administrators are listed there, so definitely check with them. And then the firearms hunts, there's 35 of them listed this year. That's page 90 to 92. The muzzleloader special hunts, 18 hunts listed, and that's on pages 93 to 94. And again, those CWD late hunts that we talked about. And then the Min DNR Learn to Deer Hunt, which I don't believe is happening this year in person, but there are resources available, other webinars listed on the web page. So hopefully we can get that back going soon. And just one note on those, I do a muzzleloader hunt every year, and it's at the St. Croix State Park is the one that I do. And I've never had any issue. Maybe I shouldn't say this, but I've never had any issues drawing my tag. But it is 26,000 acres, and there's 100 hunters, so there's lots of room to roam, and I don't see a lot of hunting pressure, and we've had very good success in the group that I hunt in. It's a lot of fun. So I definitely put in a plug for hunting somewhere where it's near you. If you're looking to explore a different area, put in for those. They're, some of them have very good draw rates, and some of them take longer. So. And then just a quick CWD overview. I believe Kelsey Lashar from the Wildlife Health Program will be giving a timely update for one of these Minnesota Outreach Skills and Stewardship webinars, and I think that's on October 27th. So I won't go into too much detail because Kelsey will go farther into that. But just a quick overview: chronic wasting disease is a fatal neurological disease that affects the deer species. So white-tailed deer, mule deer, elk, moose, reindeer, caribou. And the distribution across North America is currently 26 U.S. states and 3 Canadian provinces. In a little more detail of what we talked about before, that mandatory testing is all zones. So as you can see, there's these DPAs listed in the dark yellow is our management zones where we have infection in wild deer. Control zones are kind of a buffer. And then your surveillance zone, which is areas where we have concern, I guess, based on maybe a neighboring state positive that's closer to the border, or there's a captive cervid facility that's tested positive. So we're looking and testing sampling around those areas and in those DPAs to see if we find one in a wild deer. And just to note, we did have one in West Central that was last year, was around like the Litchfield area. That was a captive cervid facility, and we had 3 years of surveillance and didn't find a wild positive. So that zone was relinquished, and hopefully, fingers crossed, in 604 this year. So up by Brainerd, Crow Wing County. This will be going into the 3rd year of surveillance, and really hoping that we don't have another detection in deer, a wild deer, so we can again have that go back to normal and manage that without some of those disease restrictions. So, and then specific note within those management and control zones, there are carcass movement restrictions that you have to abide by. So not taking that carcass outside, so the carcass's spinal cord in the head until a non-detected result is. So you really have to make a plan. I guess I compare this to if I'm taking a trip out to North Dakota this year for mule deer hunting. I wouldn't go out there without knowing what I'm going to specifically do with my carcass. I'm planning to butcher in the field, and I'm planning to, if I shoot a deer that I want to mount, or if I want to bring those antlers home I am going to cape it and then cut the skull plate off and clean that brain tissue off. I have a clear plan. I have a clear plan of how I'm going to get that deer tested. I've already looked at the North Dakota Game and Fish website of where I need to go and how I need to do that, and what I need to abide by to bring that back. And you can quarter your deer out and move the meat around. It just cannot be that the brain and the spinal column. So, and then the surveillance zone, those gray areas, there is no carcass movement restriction. And again, there's voluntary testing outside the mandatory opening weekends, within the management and control via self-service sampling stations, and then in the surveillance zone, with a appointment with area wildlife offices. And one last note that I like to plug is this is hunters. This is our responsibility, and this is the risk that we have to accept. Being a hunter, please don't move that deer outside of the movement zone, because that is one way we can tangibly affect how CWD spreads in the landscape. And then just lastly, here's our list of resources. So again, that Mindy in our homepage, the online license sales and regulations of where to find them, those ELS vendors, Recreation Compass, and then for CWD is our Mindy and our CWD homepage, USGS, which tracks kind of the distribution and current status of CWD in North America. That's kind of the leader of the Wildlife Science Center there in Milwaukee, or Madison. And then a CWD Alliance is a page put together by Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, and then also USGS. So that's a great resource. You can find anything you need to know about CWD info right there. That Mindy and our Learn to Hunt. And then again, as I said before, some of these rules and regulations understandably are complex, or people can get frustrated with them. So I would just make a plan and call ahead, and the info center is there to answer questions. So, and that's all I got.
Great.
So thank you. I'll zip it and try to answer some questions.
Well, thanks for going through all that. I did put some of those links in the chat there, especially the recreational compass. I think that's kind of an underutilized feature of our website, and we have a mobile app for that too. And just not so much in the deer hunting part, but pheasant hunting last year, just driving down south, meet a buddy for some fishing and coming back, and it's like, well, here's a area I could stop and check out and walk around for some pheasants for a little bit, and it's easy to find. It's kind of a slick little feature. So, well, James or Craig, did you see any questions come through, or you have any questions for Todd? Really like the point we talked about, making a plan for it. And it's one of those things that, growing up on a farm hunting, we didn't always have to have the best plan in the world. So if you got a deer, you call back to the house and have somebody come help you. But making a plan now, especially with CWD, of like, yep, I'm bringing the equipment I need and the bags I need, the cooler I need to take the meat and cool it off and quarter that deer out without moving the carcass is a pretty valuable reminder.
Yeah, and definitely that brings up a good point that I forgot to mention was we do have our quartering stations, and then the dumpsters to kind of aid with those carcass movement restrictions. The dumpster contract is still out there for bid. We're trying to secure dumpsters in those areas, and I guess if you've been in those areas historically, they're likely going to be in the same spots. We try to keep them in the same spots to reduce confusion, and then also where those self-service sampling stations are, we try to keep them at the site so you have a one-stop resource right there. So there are tripods to quarter your deer and to throw the carcass right in there, or drop your lymph nodes right in or your head right in the barrel. So it's all trying to keep it all in one location. Some of them are a little bit different, where the best resource again is the CWD Minnesota DNR CWD homepage of where those locations are, but pretty consistent of historical locations. So
It's a good reminder. James did a great video. This isn't a learn to hunt type program, but James did a great video and learn to hunt program. Was that last year, James, on how to skin a deer out? And so if you're looking for that resource, hit the Learn to Hunt pages
Yeah.
if you're on the website.
Yeah, we've got some really tremendous resources. Last year, our adult Learn to Hunt programming was entirely virtual, so we put together an 11-part webinar series, 10 actual classes, and then one basically Q&A session with biologists and law enforcement and myself. So there's a lot that's out there if you have questions. And you know, when you're new to the stuff and you're coming into it, it's really easy to get overwhelmed with all the gear you need. And you know, gutting a deer, you need a knife and maybe some twine, and you can gut that deer, and you don't have to saw through the chest cavity. You don't have to saw through the pelvis. You can do it on the ground. Like it can be simple and straightforward if you want it to be. So don't let that intimidate you. Don't let that be a barrier. And we've got some great resources, not just on the gutting and skinning and quartering while the animal's on the ground, but there's videos on how to sample lymph nodes, and the wildlife health team has been tremendous with that. And yeah, the gutting video, that's got our very own Kelsey Lashar doing that video for us as well. So it's not as hard as it appears to be when you're first starting out.
Yeah, and to second that, there's a caping video in this, specifically this instance. Came about last year as one of the guys I was hunting with was asking me how to cape. I had already gone home, unfortunately, because I had other stuff I needed to do, like work and take care of kids. But he wanted me to come back down and cape his deer for him. I said, well, I'll tell you exactly how to do it. If you really want me to come back down, I will. But I was trying to, get him to do it. And he goes, well, you can't cut the deer like that. I'm like, well, how do you think a taxidermist does it? They do it the same way. So you just got to take your time. And there's an instructional video there of how to cape your deer. So, but, he's hunted for 20 years and still didn't think he had the ability to do it, or didn't know how to do it because he's never seen it. So those resources are out there. Again, usually it's just a learning experience and taking your time. So
Yeah, and it's really rare to you've got to, if you nick the hide or something, taxidermists can work with small. I mean, as long as you take your time and you're careful with it and you don't bring it back and it looks like the fringe on the edge of a carpet when you're done with it, you're gonna be okay, and the taxidermist will be able to work with it. So it'll be all right. And when you're pulling that hide back, that hide is actually pretty tough. I mean, I've swiped at it with blades before, and when they're razor sharp, yeah, it'll cut them, but sometimes you'll get lucky and you won't really do too much damage to it. So just take your time, be patient. You got all the time in the world, and there's nobody rushing you out there. So just be careful. Todd, one question I had, and I didn't see it in your list of opportunities. What about walk-in access?
yeah, that's a good point. I even forget about that, and I made it a point last year was to buy my walk-in access permit, which is only $3, so it's kind of a no-brainer if you're out in those areas. And it's been expanding, so it's great to see. It's I guess most of the parcels are kind of largely dominant in it's kind of the central part of the state or western part of the state. So if you're in those areas, you do have some opportunity with the walk-in access. You need a $3 permit, but you are able to access those areas, and they're pretty well signed of the boundaries. So and there's again like as even I forget about those sometimes. So they probably don't get hit quite as hard as some of the other areas. And I, as I said, I made it a point while I was pheasant hunting last year to finally get to my walk-in access spot, and I did, and I missed a rooster, but so yeah, they're out there too. So that's another good point. Yeah.
Yeah, we a couple of falls ago for the 2019 governor's opener, I didn't have anywhere to go, and I scoped out some walk-in access that was nearby, and the day before the opener, I drove out there, and there was a big fat doe just standing there in the middle of the parcel. So I was like, okay, of course she had the calendar, so opening morning she was not showing up anywhere. But you know, they have a tendency to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a good resource. Some of those parcels are really great. Just be super respectful of the private property, and you know, police your stuff, and don't leave any trash. And it's yet another resource that's out there for people to go and recreate and do this stuff. So
Yeah, and absolutely, I would second the being respectful. Not that you wouldn't be respectful on a WMA or ANA or SNA, but on a WIA walk-in access area, it's vitally important because it actually is private land. So in order to keep those access spots, we got to be respectful and pick up after ourselves. So yeah, but
All right, well, thank you for, I was just going to look for the walk-in access website here. So I know there is a great booklet we put out too. You can pick up at some of the, I'm sure the ELS vendors will have that. I'll throw a link in the chat here real quick too.
I just got it.
Oh, thanks, James.
Hmm.
So it's a great point, and you know, this is kind of a primer for the season coming up. So make your plan. We got what 8 days before the deadline for any of those special firearms hunts and stuff. So if that's part of your plan, make sure you get those applications in. But this is by no means the last of it. We got a lot of hunting stuff coming up for the Moss program. I know on the 27th, Todd mentioned 27th of October, we're doing kind of the latest on CWD. I'm sure the dumpster map will be out by then. So if that's an area that you're going to be hunting in, and you need to know where those testing sites are and where the dumpsters for the carcasses and whatnot are. So tune back in on the 27th, and then 23rd, we're doing a talk with, I think Amber Ladd from Conservation Officer, and James, you're doing that with, for preparing for firearm season. So kind of getting ready to step out the door and go, and all the stuff you need to do. And right after that, we're going to talk with another CO about muzzleloader hunting. So, and Todd did a great, just showed off some of those great muzzleloader special hunts too. And I might have to get with you, Todd. I'm new to muzzleloading. I got a muzzleloader from a friend last year, and with everything going on, I wasn't able to get out and fire it much. But maybe we'll have to meet up down in Stockholm one of these days and go shoot muzzleloaders for a little bit. Kind
yeah,
of fun.
absolutely. And I wanted exactly that, is to expand my deer hunting opportunities, and that's one, not only in Minnesota but other states. A lot of times those muzzleloader hunts are not quite as popular, or there's not as many people. So if you're really looking to get away from the crowds, or just the extra opportunity, that muzzleloader is a great piece. I've had mine for, I don't know, going on probably 10 years now, and I love it. So and this year, maybe a hot tip with the ammo shortage in a lot of places is those muzzleloader stuff might be a little bit easier to get. So yeah, I had that conversation with a guy. He said he couldn't find any ammo. Is there anything to do about it? I said, well, some tips are just, keep your eyes out. Don't worry about trying to buy it all at one spot. But I've been picking up shot shells every time I go to runnings, and usually I can get about one box, and I'm up to about 5 boxes now preparing for the season. And then one of the other hot tips I had was that muzzleloader stuff is pretty readily available. So if you do have a muzzleloader, and some of those inline muzzleloaders are, just as good as any rifle barrel shotgun or any rifle. So at certain distances. So
good tip. Yeah, the ammo is going to be a challenge this year. I think we ended up, my daughter shoots in a trap league, so we ended up ordering some ammo for that because we were having a tough time finding it locally around here. And I hunt with non-toxic shot, so, and that kind of gets expensive and hard to find right now too. So maybe if that's something you're looking for, if you don't have, I think James, weren't you saying you got 1 shot last year, so you got 4 shots left this year to hold you over? So usually
Yeah,
come in a box of 5.
pretty much. Yeah, my copper, my non-toxic hunting ammo. It's I still haven't had to buy any, but still nursing that box. But I don't burn through the copper stuff. But yeah, it's if if you're thinking about going hunting and you don't have ammo, start looking now and keep looking, because it's just
Mhm.
It's coming out in dribs and drabs, and it's one of those things that if you find it, it's probably going to be more expensive than you're used to paying for it, and that's just the world we live in at the moment. So you're just going to have to buckle up or borrow, and that's where we're at right now. I do think it's going to be getting better moving forward here into 2022, but it could be tough for this season. So start looking now. Look early. Look often. Don't. If you find it, grab it, because it's probably not going to be there when you go back.
And and let us know, because we might be looking for some. So.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I think I don't see any other questions in. So Todd, thank you very much. James, Craig, and Cassie, thank you for your help. I think with that, we can close up this session and see everybody next week for some small game hunting, which is starting here pretty fast. So another just over a week. So
Yeah,
thanks everybody.
Thanks for the opportunity, and hope everybody has a great fall and be safe out there. So
Fantastic. Thank you, Todd. Thanks, Benji.
Hi, guys.
Yeah, thanks.